So in my judgment, it is very, very clear that the Lord wrote your DNA and my DNA. And here's one of the reasons I think that's the case. Find for me the entity, the living, breathing, carbon-based life form that does not have DNA, that was created without it, that didn't have an instruction kit. Find it for me. I was just looking at the YouTube comments, and I did this piece the other day about intelligent design, the square that they found on Mars. And a guy wrote me and said, hey, if you have an IQ below 70, you can believe in intelligent design. But some of us don't worship illogical theories. I'm not worshiping an illogical theory, but I wrote back to the gentleman and offered him this challenge. It's a simple challenge. It's easy. Just go do this. I wrote back and said, hi, thank you for the comment. Would you kindly provide for me an example of where readable, testable, repeatable information was demonstrably created through random processes without an intelligence behind it? He can't, because that has never happened. There has never been an occasion where someone's been walking along a beach and the waves came up in a certain way with certain, sticks and overflow in it, and they happened to land on the beach and they happened to spell out a sentence or even a letter in the sand, like handwriting. You would know it's handwriting. I believe God wrote our DNA, and I believe that we should actually own our DNA. Years ago, I worked with a woman who decided to patent her DNA. Really interesting couple. And her name was Janet. And Janet was one credit short of her PhD. But just to spite the university system, she refused to complete her PhD, just to spite them. She and her husband were very, very interesting people. And Janet decided to patent her DNA. So she's constantly, at that time, was on the search for companies who are going to be using her DNA. Now, why would they do that? Because they want to monkey with DNA. They want to insert strands of our DNA. You have a unique property in your DNA. Most of us don't. I mean, they might find a tiny little uniqueness, but they want to be able to create unique drugs for our DNA. Without testing and such. That's the AI-derived drugs. So when you go get tested for a disease and they find the disease, they're going to turn to AI and it's going to model a drug that it thinks will work. And then they're going to inject you with that drug, but that drug's not been tested. It can't be tested because you are the test. So I think that we should own our DNA. And there's a big question about this because remember 23andMe? So they've filed bankruptcy. And some of the things I'm very, very curious about is where the DNA has been going. Well, it turns out that James O'Keefe actually found out where some of the DNA is going and who now owns your DNA. Talk about this in a second. 23andMe went bankrupt, and pursuit of riches is one thing, but worshiping it is another. It's being in love with money is the root of all evil. So don't do that, but do pay attention. We're at a moment in time that's never, I think, going to repeat itself, where we have an opportunity to regain financial sanity or to lose it forever. I really think it's that important. The battle between President Trump's view of the economy and the elites is that important. Either way, you're going to need to retire. This is going to be probably a moment in time of massive volatility. Did you know you can make money in volatility? Did you know you don't need to lose your money if the economy tanks? Do you know that you can make money on that? Now, I don't think you can do that if you're buying and holding, which we're all taught, but that's not what Zach Abraham, the Chief Investment Officer of Bulwark Capital Management, does. His firm actively manages every portfolio, which can reduce risk and volatility and put you in the position to have a great retirement no matter which side wins in the battle of our economy. Do this. Call him. Have a free, no obligation consultation, no expectations whatsoever. He'll do a video call. He'll do a phone call. He'll dig into your retirement hopes and wishes. And if they're plans, he'll tell you got a great plan. If they're hopes and wishes, he'll help you get it straight so they're actually a plan. Here's how to get in touch with them. Call 866-779-RISK. That's 866-779-RISK, or simply go to KNOW, knowyourriskradio.com. In Investment advisory services offered the Trek Financial LLC and SEC registered investment advisor. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 25-137. When 23andMe filed bankruptcy, I went back and I knew that James O'Keefe had something on these guys in regard to who owns our DNA. I'm not really happy to learn. I did remember this correctly. Here's what James O'Keefe found in one of his undercover videos. This is a U.S. Treasury policy advisor talking about 23andMe and with whom they share consumer data.
When 23andMe comes in, trying to figure out what all you are, I should do that.
You shouldn't do that, though. Do not give your information they sell it to other people.
Do they sell it to Russia?
They sell it to everybody.
Meet Nathaniel Johnson, a policy advisor for the United States Department of the Treasury.
There's a clause in their contract that basically says, like, we can give your information to our shareholders so that they can do stuff. And all of their shareholders are like pharmaceutical companies. But some of those pharmaceutical companies are companies based in other countries, and those pharmaceutical companies in other countries are like the property of like the Ministry of Defense of Russia, or like owned by China.
They knew this at the Treasury Department, and they were warning us about this. Now, what I'm about to say is my imagination. I'm just imagining things. If I were to write a fictional science fiction story, it might be about a superpower like China or Russia deciding that instead of waging war, we're just going to wage a biological war against the intelligence of certain people, certain groups of people. That over time, we're just going to dumb down certain groups of people because we have knowledge of how their DNA works. We're going to create pathogens that only work with certain people's DNA. And when we do this over time, through breeding, we're going to end up with classes of people who are super, super dumb. You might even include in this maybe the ability to spray an area with DNA targeted pathogens that only certain people, or maybe just do this in a subway. Just release the canister inert to everybody but a few people. That's just if I were to write a fictional novel. I mean, certainly it doesn't have any relation to what they could do with this. That could never happen, right? So I haven't talked to Janet and her husband in years, but she was onto something when she patented her DNA. I think that we should push our Congress and our president to protect our DNA from being used for any purpose without our express consent every single time it's being used. After all, if we're not willing to protect the language God wrote into our bodies, what exactly would we protect?